Basically, I have no idea why I waited 6 years to get the citizenship.
Long delays in getting citizenship is just one problem Muslims say they face in the post-9/11 era. Are Muslims being treated unfairly and perhaps illegally when it comes to immigration policies? Eddie Ruza takes a look in our ongoing Chicago Matters series, Beyond Borders. An estimated 400,000 Muslims live in the Chicago area. About half of them are foreign-born. But many of those who want to become full-fledged Americans often face delays and repeated interviews by immigration authorities. More than 6 years after 9/11, the Muslim community says it is still the object of suspicion and unfair scrutiny. Here's Eddie Aruza with tonight's installment of our Chicago Matters series, Beyond Borders.
Nafez Bakir's name may not ring a bell with you, but in his native Jordan, he's very well known. That's because Bakir was once Jordan's top-ranked ping pong player. It led him to tournaments all around the world where he frequently brought home the top prize. Bakir's prowess in the game he calls table tennis was also what brought him to the United States for the first time in 1988.
There was a company, ICCP, International Camp Counselor Program, dealing with YMCAs all over the world, and they wanted people to come here to teach kids in summer camps, like table tennis, sports, swimming, all other activities. Since I was like #1 in Jordan, table tennis, they wanted me to come here to teach kids at the camp.
It was on a return visit to the U.S. in 1992 that Bakir met the woman who would become his wife. They now have 2 children and live in the southern suburbs. But Bakir, who is Muslim, had the unfortunate luck of becoming eligible for U.S. citizenship 2 months before September 11th, 2001.
I applied for the citizenship in July 2001. Then I got the passport in July this year, which is 2007. So it took 6 years, basically.
Bakir is just one of many Muslims who say they're held to a different standard than other populations when it comes to U.S. immigration policies. Civil rights advocates say long delays in citizenship and repeated interviews have become common practice since the terrorist attacks of 9/11. Bitta Mostofi of the Council on American Islamic Relations says at any given time, her organization has over 100 cases of individuals suing the federal government for rights that are readily granted most other immigrant populations.
We have clients who have been here for 25 years or more, who have been outstanding professors or doctors. It ultimately doesn't matter. What matters is that you are Muslim and that you come from one of these countries. Statute says that the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services has exactly 120 days from the date of the examination to issue a final decision on the application. So clearly 2, 3, 4 years is well beyond that 120-day period of time.
Even native-born Muslims like Akif Rahman are not immune to harsh scrutiny by federal authorities. Rahman was born in Springfield, Illinois. He is now married with 2 kids and lives in Wheaton. But Akif's wife is from Canada, and on trips to see her family, he says he's been repeatedly detained at the border. It's led him to file suit against the Department of Homeland Security.
The one major event that really prompted me to file the lawsuit was when we were driving back from Canada with the family, and where I was held for 6 hours. I was handcuffed for 3, guarded for the full duration, and asked questions of whether I knew any of the 9/11 hijackers, if I knew of any terrorist funding, just, bizarre questions like that.
It's not only federal officials who may be suspicious of Muslims. One Chicago area Muslim leader says anti-Muslim sentiment is on the rise nationwide.
It's a strange mix of public policy as well as media responsibility that creates that image that somehow the American Muslims were responsible for 9/11. There was not a single person who is accused of 9/11 had anything to do with Islam or Muslims in America. If you ask me, are Muslims better off at this moment than immediately after 9/11, I would say no. because of that whole image which is out there. Muslims have a name for it, and our neighbors still need to know that name, and that is Islamophobia.
Among the organizations advocating for Muslim Americans is the ACLU, which has turned Akif Rahman's initial suit into a class action lawsuit.
At the drop of a hat, U.S. citizens of Muslim descent are being investigated by the FBI. And all too often, this puts them into the watch list, and then they, or people who've got similar names, are being treated as though they're terrorists. There needs to be a system to ensure that people are not repeatedly being mistaken for watch-listed persons when they themselves are not watch-listed.
Akif Rahman says since filing the suit last year, he has not been detained. Nafez Bakr, meanwhile, is now a proud American citizen. But tens of thousands of Muslims across the country remain in limbo or under suspicion, simply because their religion is tied to the worst terrorist attack on U.S. soil.
If this was happening to fellow citizens of white Christian extraction, we would have solved the problem by now. But because this is happening to a vulnerable and all too often unpopular population of our country, we have not had the political will to solve this problem.
And at least for the moment, that political will doesn't seem to be on the horizon. For Chicago Tonight, I'm Eddie Aruza.
The Department of Homeland Security, as well as U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, deny that Muslims are being unfairly profiled. As always, we welcome your feedback on our Chicago Matters series, Beyond Borders. Just go to our website, WTTW.com, and click on Chicago Tonight.